back with another super awesome episode of Women In. I can't wait for you to meet my next guest, but before you do, let me tell you what you're listening to. Women In is a podcast that celebrates women from all walks of life and the people who uplift them. Each episode features incredible voices from my world, sharing stories that spark inspiration, challenge the status quo, and remind us that empowering women empowers everyone. This is a bold, curious, and uncensored space where disruption is welcome, forward thinking is encouraged, and change is the goal. I'm passionate about breaking down barriers, not just for us, but for the next generation. Whether our paths cross professionally or personally, these conversations matter. Let's dive in and celebrate the power of connection, growth, and the people who are shaping our world. And this woman is definitely one of them. Tabbin Almond has had a long and largely secret struggle to regain control over alcohol. Alcohol-free since 2018, she now works full-time as an alcohol freedom coach, speaker, podcast host, and writer. Her book, Bottling Up Trouble, How Alcohol is Harming Your Business and What You Can Do About It, is an Amazon bestseller and has been shortlisted for the Business Book of the Year Awards 2025. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Hey, Tabbin.
Hi, great to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. I always want to start with the first question because I think it's super cool how people come into each other's lives in different ways. So how do you recall you and I coming into each other's lives?
Through this naked mind, I think we were training in the same cohort, weren't we? If not, it was in the academy, but I think we trained together, didn't we?
Yeah. And so if everyone's hearing Tabbin's accent, they're going to quickly learn that you're not in the U.S. So tell everyone where you're from.
I'm English. You can probably guess that from my accent. I live down in the southwest of England in a very rural area, a place called Dartmoor, which is really beautiful. I was brought up down here and lived in London, lived all over, lived in France and stuff, but then came back here and just love the outdoor life.
Yeah. Have you made, so This Naked Mind, in case anyone is wondering what that is, this is a book that Annie Grace wrote, and then she created a coaching certification. Also, The Live Alcohol Experiment's another book where you take a 30-day break from alcohol. And in there, in the coaching cohort, this is where Tab and I met. We're both certified coaches. Are you a senior coach too?
Yeah. And I coach now in the path, the sort of year-long program. Yeah.
Yes. And I did as well. I think we both were we coached in the same path.
We coached some groups together, didn't we? Yeah.
We did.
And I now do sort of like a sort of part-time role with them for 3 days a week. Yeah. Which I love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone's like, what the heck are they talking about? Google it and you'll see this is what, and we're going to talk a lot about alcohol freedom today. So let's start there. You quit drinking in 2018, and in your bio you said long and largely secret. You described your drinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Explain that. Tell us about your journey with alcohol, and then when you changed in 2018 when you said enough is enough.
Well, I said enough is enough a fair few times, like most of us. Yeah. I grew up in a family where alcohol was just like totally normal. And somebody asked me the other day if I knew any adults who didn't drink when I was growing up. And I have to say, I think the answer to that is no. If they didn't, I wasn't aware of it. I just thought it's what everybody does when they're grown up, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So, unsurprisingly, I started doing the same thing. My mother had, I don't use the word, I hate it, the word alcoholic, but she had a real problem with alcohol. So growing up, I was determined I was not going to do that. I was going to not fall into that trap. I had more self-discipline and more willpower, and that wasn't going to happen to me. And of course it did. By the sort of, I got married and had, even at that stage I thought maybe I drink a bit more than other people, but then I found it no problem at all not to drink during pregnancy, so I thought, I can't have a problem then. And I hear that so often. I think there's some amazing bit of biology, because it's almost universal that even if we've got a problem with alcohol, we're able to be alcohol free easily during pregnancy. But it didn't last. And by the early 2000s, I was really aware that I I had a bit of an issue. And I remember being on holiday actually in the States in 2003 when the Iraq War was all going on. And we were in New York, and I went into Barnes and Noble, and there was quite a sort of cluster of books about alcohol and how to stop drinking. And I spent a fair amount of money even then, so okay, and I bought 3 or 4 books and read them all, thought, yeah, I get that, and nothing stuck. It's sort of like, intellectually I got it, but I couldn't change. So I then did the only thing I had ever heard of, which was took myself off to AA. Just, it never clicked for me. And I really don't want to knock AA because it saved millions of lives, and it's a great organisation, but it doesn't work for everybody. And I think I had this issue over defining myself as an alcoholic, because I'm a sort of researcher, strategist, and the fact that there's no definition of an alcoholic or of alcoholism kind of bothered me. I thought, I don't want to define myself as something without knowing what it is. But that was my kind of would-be sponsor just said I was making excuses and I was in denial, and anyway. I tried 3 different rooms, as it were, different places, different meetings. Never really felt that I fitted in. I also was made to no, I wasn't made to feel. I made myself feel that I wasn't bad enough, that I hadn't hit enough of a rock bottom, because nothing really bad ever happened. It was just waking up with hangovers, feeling sick in the shower in the morning, feeling trapped. But nobody would have looked at me and said, oh my God, that girl needs to stop drinking. I was holding it all together. I had a good job. I was being promoted and stuff. I wasn't really showing up in great shape, but I was showing up, and nobody seemed to mind. Nobody ever mentioned anything. So then I remember just feeling very empty and troubled by my relationship with alcohol. AA hadn't worked, and I read the Alan Carr book, The Easy Way to Control Alcohol, and I loved 2 words in it. I loved the word easy, and I loved the word control. So I didn't really want to give up alcohol. I just wanted not to drink the way I did, which tended to be a lot on my own, because I had young children. My husband was working away a lot, and I would, at the end of the day, just open a bottle of wine, intending to only have 1 glass and drink the whole bottle, and that was kind of rinse and repeat. And having read the book, it was the first thing I'd read which sort of talked about the role of the subconscious at all. And I then went to his hypnotherapy clinic in London, did a day there one-on-one, and I honestly thought I'd found the keys to the Holy Grail, because from that day, for the next 7.5 years, I was completely alcohol free, and it was utterly effortless. I just, there would be times where I would think, ooh, back in my drinking days, I'd be drinking now, but I'm not, thank heavens I don't want it. And it was almost, word for word what the hypnotherapist had said to me. But there was we didn't go into why I liked to drink, what the underlying issues were. It was just, so he sort of rewired my subconscious, but I had no input in it, if you like. I hadn't done the work. And a very memorable, well, it wasn't very memorable because I went to bed very drunk, but I was diagnosed, I had a sort of shitty time. Marriage fell apart, husband left, big financial problems. 3 months later, diagnosed with breast cancer, and I had the initial surgery, during which they tested my lymph nodes, and I had this sort of consultation at the hospital where they said, right, we've tested your lymph nodes, the cancer's in all of them in a really high count. And I was just terrified. I thought, my husband is not around anymore. He'd actually gone to Australia, and there was me and these children, and I was going to die, and what were we going to do? Poor children, they were 21 and 19 at the time. And I was just terrified. And I went home. I was with my daughter and my brother. They opened a bottle of wine, and I said, I'll have some. And I drank a bottle of wine probably on my own that night. Felt absolutely dreadful the next day. And I didn't actually get straight back into drinking, because I was having chemo and then radiotherapy, more surgery, then chemo, then radiotherapy. But once the treatment was over, I gradually started drinking again. And in fact, on my website, I have a photo of me celebrating the end of my radiotherapy with, a glass of Prosecco, scarf wrapped around my head, bald as anything. And I look at it now and think, oh, you poor girl, you had no idea of the connection between alcohol and breast cancer. It's a deeply ironic photo now when I look at it.
Yeah.
But my drinking became solitary because I'd had these 7.5 years where I didn't drink. So everyone had got used to the idea that Tabbin doesn't drink. So if after I'd had the cancer and gone back to drinking, I was in public, I was just, I just have the odd glass, and I did in public have the odd glass, but when I got home, I had the odd bottle. It was really, and that was horrible. That was worse than when I used to drink too much at dinner parties or something like that, because it was just the shame when you are hiding it is just next level. It was horrible. And I was just really unhappy with it, trying like mad to stop, but I just, all those rules, and I'm not going to drink Monday to Thursday and all of that, but I couldn't do it. And I think I Googled, am I an alcoholic? And I always say, if you're doing that, you kind of know the answer. Yeah.
It doesn't change. The answer doesn't change every time you type it in, does it, Tab?
I love doing those quizzes now where they say, how much do you drink? Nothing. Please give an answer. No, the answer is 0.
It's my favorite.
Yeah. And by doing that, I got onto a mailing list for This Naked Mind, and I got the book and read it and thought, wow, this makes a lot of sense. But I'd had the experience before of reading books. I'd read a lot of books, but it hadn't changed anything. So I thought, right, I'm going to consolidate this. I'm actually going to do this course. And I know that I was hungover when I clicked do the course. Yeah. I did a 3-month course, and I was very lucky because Annie Grace herself was my coach, which was awesome. And I was already very committed to it, but anybody who's ever done one of these courses, the idea is not to just stop drinking from day one. It's stop trying to stop, learn the things, learn how your brain works, and then take a break. I actually accelerated all of that because one day the video of the day was about how alcohol causes 7 types of cancer, including breast cancer. Now, it's obviously not the only cause, but the level I was drinking, I was looking at a good 20% increased risk of having breast cancer because I drank. So nobody told me that. And I know that sounds really pathetic, but I had actually asked outright. I had asked the oncologist when I was sort of told, okay, you're cancer free, off you go, we'll see you in a year. And I asked, what do I need to do to stay alcohol free? And I was told, oh, just eat healthily and keep taking plenty of exercise. No mention of alcohol. So it sounds really pathetic not to have known, but we kind of don't get told. It's not on the labels anywhere, is it?
No.
Still, it should be, but it's not.
Right.
So that was it. That information kind of really was the deal breaker for me. And I remember, well, it was the 12th of May, 2018.
Yeah.
And I was with my daughter in London, and we went to have a meal on a Friday night. Before the following day, we were going to do this thing called the Moonwalk, which is a marathon distance walk during the course overnight around the streets of London in aid of breast cancer charity. And we were doing it there were 8 of us in our team, but it was just me and Lucy having this meal. And we went and had an Italian meal, and I had a glass of wine, and it was a Pinot Grigio. I can remember it now. And I had a little bit of it, and I said, don't want any more of this. And I said to Lucy, do you want to finish this for me? And she went, is there something the matter with it? And I went, no, I just don't want it. I don't think, there's nothing the matter. It tastes fine, but it kind of doesn't taste fine to me. And she said, and I said, I think I'm done. And she went, what? I think she probably went, oh, again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like most people, when we
yeah,
say we're quitting, they're like,
yeah,
"Are
yeah,
really?"
yeah. There was a bit of a history of me saying I was going to stop
Yeah.
drinking and then not doing it, and that was it. I haven't drunk since, and I haven't wanted to. That's the joyous thing. Just haven't wanted to, um, and that was like the final piece of the jigsaw for me. I think, knowing that I could well have caused my own breast cancer. No, nobody knows. We can't know, but I
Right.
certainly don't want to risk getting it again by drinking too much.
Yeah, it was scary enough the first time.
Yeah,
Here's what's interesting. It's been 7.5 years now. You're right
yeah,
back where
yeah,
you were.
yeah.
Right now. So, and what I'm hearing you say is you have real freedom. It wasn't, and that's, I mean, that's a cool story about the hypnosis, though, by the way,
Mm,
because I'm sure you, I mean, you've coached hundreds of people, if not thousands, like me, and you hear like people are willing to go to lengths to quit drinking, especially if it's easy, or like what, how you did it with hypnosis. That's
yeah.
pretty cool. But you're right, there wasn't any of the thought work or
Yeah,
subconscious
and
work
I
at
think the big
7.5 years.
difference now is that having done the personal development work, which sounds a bit
Mhm.
woo-woo, but that's kind of what it is, getting
It
to
is,
know
yeah.
yourself, learning to like yourself, having done all of that work, it feels I feel like I know myself really, really well. I understand, and I understand other people so much better as well. I just feel much more grounded and um, competent now to live my life kind of in line with my values, which sounds a bit goody goody, but that's basically what we're talking about.
Yeah, but I say that stuff all the time, and
Yeah.
I'm like, but it's true. Like when you can say, I would never have said that stuff before because I wasn't. I was like violating every core value I had every time I drank. So it feels
Yeah,
good to
yeah,
say, yeah, I'm living in line with my core values because
yeah.
there are times I just celebrated 5 years. And there are times where people like the sober curious movement has come a long way.
Mm, mm.
But there are still times, as you know, where people just don't get it. And so it's, people say, they'll say this to me once in a while, like, oh, I forgot you don't drink because you're an alcoholic. And I'm like, hang on a minute. Like,
Yeah,
and I'm not upset at it. I don't like the label alcoholic either, but it's like, no, this is a choice I made. No one
yeah.
made it for me. It's a health and wellness decision. I'm interested to know, because you mentioned it too, what is it about that term alcoholic that turns you off? And is there a label you prefer?
Um, I mean, the reason I don't like it is because it labels the person rather than the disease or the I don't know if you call disease. There's a lot of debate about this sort of disease naming as well, but um, it's not the person that's the problem. It's alcohol that's the problem. When you remove alcohol from the person, they're fine. So it's not a permanent state of affairs, and that's I think it's a really it's labelling, but also it's it's a term that has so much shame and stigma attached to it, and I think that's the issue. Now I don't mind. I'll get up on a stage and say, yeah, if you want to say that I was an alcoholic, I whatever your version. But I often start talks by saying, just close your eyes and imagine an alcoholic. And so I bet that what most of you have come up with is a man in filthy clothes sitting on a park bench drinking something out of a a bottle hidden in a paper bag. That's kind of our vision of an alcoholic, and it's very judgmental, um,
Yeah.
and um, I just think the very name kind of puts people off. But it doesn't matter. I'll I don't, if people call me an alcoholic or so well, I used to be one. I'm not one now because I haven't touched the stuff for 7.5 years.
Right.
Um, but I think that the more that's why I love doing these things, because the more of us that are saying, yeah, I used to have a problem with alcohol, but I don't have one now, and my life is so much better, and I'm so much happier, and I'm so much more productive, and things are cool.
Yep.
And just saying it's not a permanent state of affairs. I think that's no. I prefer. I mean, the technical term now that the medical profession uses, alcohol use disorder.
Yes.
I often just talk about problematic drinking.
Hmm.
If it's causing problems physically, mentally, or emotionally, let's maybe do something about it. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Well, and this is a great, okay, to your book, so I love books and I love supporting authors especially that are my friends, and even authors that are yet to be my friends because they don't know it yet. Because I'm like, oh, I read your book and I'll reach out to them. But
yeah,
we follow each other on social media and I'm like, ooh, Tabbin wrote a book. I'm going to buy it, and then I reached out to you. I'm like, we need to be on each other's
Yeah,
podcasts and talk
yeah.
about this, because I was giving a talk like that week or at a distillery, and it was called Disrupt HR, and it was to HR professionals about alcohol in the workplace and looking at this differently and the cost of alcohol in our workplaces. It's not just about the 9 to 5, but it's after work, or and the expectations and our culture and all that. So I'm like, I got your book, I'm reading it, I'm like, yes, 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 yes. So so tell everyone about your book. And by the way, congratulations,
Thank
it's a
you.
bestseller, it's up for an award. When do you find out if you get the award?
I found that it didn't win. It didn't
Oh,
win. Yeah, but hey, it's being a finalist, and actually the book that won is in that category. It also won the overall best book of the year, so that made me feel a little bit better. But
yeah.
yeah, but yeah, it's about it's called How Alcohol Bottling Up Trouble: How Alcohol is Harming Your Business, and what you can do about it. So it covers, and it's for businesses. Businesses have to make money, so I go in on the financial side first of all. The it's really hard to get data on the amount of absence from work that
Yes.
is to do with alcohol, because people don't tell the truth, because they know that they're going to risk risk getting fired, frankly.
Yeah.
Certainly in the UK you can be fired for having a problem with alcohol, which most
Really?
civilized countries do not do that, but we do.
Yeah, we
Um,
don't. Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's this sort of assumption that it's a lifestyle choice, which is pretty ill-informed, but there we go.
Yeah.
But I think everybody knows, even if they don't know they could get fired in the UK for drinking, everybody knows that it's not going to go down well on on your HR record if you've got a problem with booze, and it means that people think, oh, can we trust her?
Hmm.
So nobody wants to be sort of outing themselves. So I did some research when the book was published. I commissioned Ipsos Mori to do some research for me here in the UK, and it was robust sample of 2,000, and we found that 96% of people who had taken time off because they were hungover did not tell the truth about it.
Yeah.
So 4%, only 4% tell the truth. So you can kind of extrapolate from that what the cost of alcohol-related absence really is, but it's never going to be an easy thing to ascertain until we make it something that people can say, do you know what, this I have got hangover and it keeps happening and I need help. But we're probably unlikely to ever know the real costs of it.
Yeah.
From the absenteeism. There's the other side of it is where people do turn up for work, but they're not really in any good shape to do any work. And we refer to that as presenteeism. And that, with some brilliant research was done by an organisation here in the UK called the Institute of Alcohol Studies. And they extrapolated a cost, which back when they did it in 2019 was that it was costing £1.4 billion to the UK economy. But the really interesting stat for me was that those who were the samples said that they self-reported that they were 39% less productive when they went to work with a hangover. So that's a heck of a lot. So sort of they're only operating at 60%, in other words, which is big dent, and then you can work through how often that's happening. But they point out that it's not just the individual, but people work in teams, and if one person is being consistently less productive because they're coming into work hungover, or maybe even actually drunk at work, which does happen in some cases, then it has a real ripple effect on everybody else as well. It dents morale, it causes higher staff turnover and all that sort of stuff. So the other things I looked at were the kind of culture things. There's a lot of ways that businesses, maybe unwittingly, are encouraging people to drink, and a proportion of those people will develop problems with alcohol. I mean, my drinking career really took off when I started working in advertising.
Yep.
You know, I thought it was brilliant. I was being paid to go and get drunk every lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
seems
Yep.
like the best job in the world. But actually, that culture is unhelpful. I've been to far too many funerals of people I worked with who've died of alcohol-related causes. But that culture, what we've got now is a younger generation who are not wanting to drink the same way as we did.
Mm-hmm.
And alcohol is not, they just don't want to be drinking at work. They're sort of just a completely different outlook. And when I was researching for the book, there was this thing where young people in the workplace were looking at their older bosses, managers, who were often male and kind of flouting the company credit card behind the bar. Come on, everybody over to the pub, I'm buying kind of mentality. And it just made certain groups feel kind of excluded.
Mm-hmm.
Non-drinkers, which is largely the youngsters, and certain religious groups and cultural groups, women who might be trying to get pregnant or are in the early stages of pregnancy. There are so many groups who felt marginalised and excluded by this culture, which is well-meaning but actually ignorant in the true sense of the word, just not thinking it through. Things like Christmas parties, where you know, the advertising agency Christmas parties are legendary, but the stories that come out are actually really unkind. You know, people telling stories about the girl who got so drunk she wet herself when she came into the office the next day, or the girl who was so hungover she curled up under her desk with her face against a radiator and she was basically passed out, and when the heating came on she burnt her face but was passed out and didn't realise it. Those sort of stories, they're not actually funny. And very occasionally there'll be a story that hits the newspapers and the media where something really bad has happened, and suddenly there's, we've got to tighten up on this. But you know, there's people are being put in dangerous situations all the time, and there's also a feeling that if it's free, I'm kind of going to get my money's worth out of the bosses. So, and I can understand that, and this, you know, so you'll get often fairly junior members of staff who maybe don't normally drink that much, just going for it purely because they don't have to pay for it. And that can lead to awful consequences as well.
So what do you say, Tabbin? I mean, what's some advice you're giving these businesses to look at this differently, or not even just look at it? I mean, that's a step, right? Consider what you're wrote about, and it's backed by research. But like, what's a step they can take that is moving in the direction of we care about the message we're sending with alcohol as it relates to work or outside of work?
Yeah, there are a number of things. One is to review alcohol policies actually in the organisation. Are we using alcohol to help teams to bond? And if so, let's rethink that. I think that's the most common role that alcohol is given. But also, are we positioning alcohol as a reward for people? Are we giving away cases of Chablis as a prize for somebody who does the best in something that needs to be done, which is something that really did happen, and the person who won that prize was struggling hugely with alcohol at the time and was given a case of Chablis? Not helpful. Are we using alcohol? I think giving alcohol as a corporate gift, I would love to see that just stopped, because I've received alcohol from people. I've received alcohol from somebody who I've worked with who knows what I do, and it's just an unthinking gift. Like, why have you sent me a bottle of champagne? Because I don't drink. You know I don't, because we've worked about this. You know, and it's just, but I think that as increasing numbers of people change their relationship with alcohol, not necessarily to be alcohol free, but just to reduce it. It's putting alcohol on a pedestal that it just doesn't deserve to be on, to give it as a gift. And so I always sort of say to people, if they do give me alcohol, I actually say, well, I no longer drink, so I will be giving this away. I just want you to know that, and then the next time they'll do something. But I think experiences, we value human contact and human connection. Mm-hmm. So why don't we do things that are more experiential rather than just sending a bottle of wine at Christmas? Or just give people a subscription to a magazine or anything. But right. We shouldn't ever assume that people want to drink alcohol.
Yes. Yeah. Those are very practical tips. And one of the things that I do too, because I've noted that there is alcohol, like when conferences, okay, this is a big one. And so as I was becoming more known in sports and asked to join steering committees and things like that, it's fine, I'll be on the steering committee. So I would say, because we have a lot of alcohol sponsors in sports, I'm like, can we get a non-alcoholic brand in here? Because not everyone at these conferences wants to drink. 100%. And so I've been advocating for that on every committee, whatever I sit on in sports or even outside of sports, whatever events I hold for season ticket holders or my staff, that there is an NA option beyond water, soda, coffie. So if
totally agree. Yeah.
And I mean, they know as soon as I say, they're like, yes, Tony, we've got NA options, but I'm like, no, I need to remind, because not everyone is thinking. And it's so cool, Tabbin, because more and more people in my organization, I've been here 11 years, they are, and whether it's my influence or not, they have become non-drinkers or they dabble in it. And because the stigma is slowly being chipped away. And so the work you're doing is just proof of that. And it was definitely confirmation bias when I did that speech, saw your book, and I'm like, yes, we need to talk about this more. Are you getting any feedback on businesses like saying, thank you for writing this book, or HR directors, or are you getting feedback yet?
Some, yeah. I think it's a very tricky topic, because I think that and it's one of the issues in this sort of work, that a business leader is highly likely to drink alcohol, because we know that the sort of socioeconomic profile of just drinking is not the guy on the park bench. It's actually the man in a suit with a good job. And it's more male than female, but there are plenty of us women that have got into trouble with it. So those people who are at the top of an organisation feel that it's hypocritical of them to sort of try to change the culture when they see that, oh yeah, I know it's a problem, but I'm part of the problem. So it's a very delicate balance, because and I just say to people, it's about information and understanding. Nobody is saying thou shalt not drink, but having all of the information about alcohol is important. But also being an organisation that is aware that this stuff is highly addictive, and we shouldn't be actively encouraging its consumption, let alone requiring its consumption in the course of somebody's working day. So just changing those sort of bonding rituals, if you like, so that alcohol doesn't play a role. Having Christmas parties where there's really good alcohol-free options and they're all free, and if you want some booze, you have to pay for it. That's a really good first step. But ideally, make the evening or the day not about alcohol, something else. You're doing a fun activity. I haven't been there yet, but I really want to go. In London, on Tottenham Court Road, there is a human monopoly. So you can go to this place and you play in teams, but it's sort of like a life-size Monopoly game, and it just looks so much fun. I think that would be an awesome thing, and you could do that as a team. Yeah, sure, you can then go and get a pizza afterwards. If somebody wants a glass of red wine with it, fine. But the evening is about the Monopoly and the game and all of that, rather than all going to get drunk in a restaurant. yeah.
Yeah,
So it's that subtle change, I think. Yeah,
absolutely.
it's beginning to happen. I mean, I like, yeah, I'm a sports fan. I don't work in sport, but the our local Premiership Rugby Club,
Hmm.
there are really good alcohol-free options now in the bars. When I first was a season ticket holder, if you didn't want to drink, it was water or Coke. Um,
Yep.
uh, but there are now good alcohol-free beers, and so it is beginning to happen. And I
Yeah.
went to Twickenham for the final of the Women's Rugby World Cup, which was awesome. Sorry, Canada, if anybody from Canada is listening, but it was an awesome day. But the sales of alcohol-free drinks way outperformed any other day that they've ever had at Twickenham, so which I thought was really interesting.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
love
yeah.
that.
So it's and I don't know. Some of it is, the trend towards less drinking alcohol, more drinking alcohol free, and some of it was the demographic of people going to watch women's rugby. But
Mhm.
it is interesting. It's beginning to change. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
yeah.
So I'm going to shift gears a little bit because I want to talk about women in,
Yeah.
not just the meaning of the pod. Well, I'm going to start with the meaning of the podcast. But so I named the podcast Women In with 3 dots on purpose because, in the world of podcasting, I could have focused on sports, women in sports. I could have focused on women in living alcohol free because these are 2 areas of my life I'm super passionate about. But I'm like, hang on a minute. We women have so many different identities, and I didn't want it to just be about women. I wanted it to be inclusive and include men too, because when I look at my life thus far, there a lot of the influential people in my life have been men, and so I've been working on be influencing women too, because everyone that kind of led the way for me were men in my life, and um, so when, the dots are meant to be filled in individually by my guests. So how would you fill in those dots for you? Women in what, Tabbin?
Changing society.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. That's so powerful. And you are making so much change because at your coach, you're an author, you're a speaker, and it's just so powerful. You're a survivor, literally, of
Yeah,
cancer.
yeah, yeah. And also just proving to people, I think having survived cancer, you sort of feel as though you've been given a second chance at life.
Hmm.
And now nobody was ever talking about hospices or anything like that with me. I was very fortunate. Um, and as it happens, I have a friend who is younger than me, who is, as we speak, in her last few days, dying of
Mm.
pancreatic cancer. And it's desperately sad. Um, and I've sort of been to see her and said our last farewells and stuff, which just broke me. But it also makes me realise that we have only got one life, so bloody well live it. And I last weekend took part in a high rocks. It wasn't actually a high rocks, but I've always loved kind of being taking exercise. I'm not particularly gifted. Well, I'm definitely not gifted, but I just like taking some exercise and using my body, and it's really cool. My partner and we were the oldest people doing it. I thought,
Yeah.
well, that's fine. I'm 65 years old, and then I thought, how many other 65-year-olds are putting their lycra on and getting out there and doing that on a Saturday? Not enough. So, um, so I like kind of role modelling that you can still be fit and active. Now, obviously, at some point, the body is going to say enough's enough. But for the moment, use it or lose it. It seems to still be working. So, yeah,
That's right. Hey,
yeah.
and my dad's 82 years old, and this very minute he is playing in a national softball tournament for the 80 and like 80U, 80 and up. And
Wow,
I mean, as long as you keep
brilliant.
moving, you're going to be in your Lycra in your 80s doing it because
Yeah,
he keeps kicking ass. So you keep going. It's when we stop that's
yeah,
when our body says, "Wait a minute." So we can't
yeah.
just keep going.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a slightly different way of changing society. But I think the real thing is just to, if I could reduce the stigma around people having problems with alcohol so that they felt more empowered to ask for help, whether as private individuals or working for companies, and those companies said, yeah, of course. And I know I was really well looked after by the company I worked for when I had breast cancer.
Mhm.
There was no judgment on me for getting breast cancer. Now, I would love to see a world where there's no judgment on somebody for getting into trouble with alcohol, where they said, oh, yeah, okay, you need some help. You need a bit of time off and you need some help. Let's make sure that both of those happen, and we'll look after you. And, you know, can you imagine how loyal those people would be?
Oh, 100%. And you wrote
Yeah,
about that in the book,
yeah, yeah,
which I thought was really quite a testament to your employer at the time. Good for
yeah,
them.
yeah. No, they were great. They really were. Yeah.
Tabbin, who are the women in your life that have an impact in the woman that sits before me now?
Ooh. Obviously, my mum,
Hmm.
uh, my grandmother, very much so. My mum's mum. I had a really close relationship with her.
Hmm.
Then in my current world, I've worked for a lot of really good women
Hmm.
in advertising. Some you know great brains and fun people. Um, in more recent times, Annie Grace,
Hmm.
obviously, for writing the book and doing the work she does, um, and a lot of other coaches. I mean, the one who really sticks out for me is Lorna Wilson,
Yeah.
who she's just the most incredible human being. And I worked with her when I was really sort of struggling with imposter syndrome when I was writing the book, and she really sort of talked me out of that and said, yeah, "Come on, get your act together, girl. You've got a job to do here." Yeah, in a nice Lorna way.
Yeah.
Um, but just the majority of the coaches are women,
Hmm.
and I think through the personal development work that I've done by being a coach and training as a coach and really learning so much, I've learned to be much more kind of open and vulnerable. And I think that other women are also really, really good at that. I'm not saying that the guys aren't, but it's and I have a host of just amazing friends who really and I'd had good friends, but it was when I got ill and I had to ask for help, and that was the start of everything really for me. It was like, you can't be Little Miss Perfect. You no man is an island, or no woman is either. You need to be able to ask people for things, and of course they love to be asked.
They do.
Yeah, I had an example of it yesterday. As you know, I had to have my dog put down, and he was 16 and a half years old, but it was still desperately sad, and I was really a mess about it. I feel loads better already, but and yesterday morning the vet was coming during the afternoon, and I
Hmm.
phoned a really good friend who lives very nearby, and said, "I've got a favour to ask you. This is what's happening. Would you be able to come whilst the vet is here and stuff?" And she said, "Yeah, of course. What time?" And she was just brilliant. We then went for a walk, and I had supper with her and her husband last night, and just a horrible thing to do, to sit and
Yeah.
watch your best friend sob.
Yeah.
But she did it, and it was just amazing. And I
Mm.
wouldn't have done that back in my drinking days. It's that learning to be vulnerable and to share things, because and she said to me today how much she appreciated being asked. It's a real testament to a friendship, isn't it? So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What's your best friend's name that was there? Because she's another woman that's part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. That was Helen
Helen.
Clark. Yeah,
All right. Well, hopefully she
yeah,
listens to
yeah.
this.
I'll have to make sure she listens to it.
You're a great friend, Helen. All right, I got two more questions for you, Tabin. Now that you're an author, what books are you reading right now, or what podcasts are you listening to?
What am I reading right now? I am reading an absolutely awesome book called Beyond Happiness by Sir Anthony Seldon.
Mm.
He wasn't a sir when he wrote it. He's just an incredible guy, and it's a very very good book. Recommend it to anybody. And another one that I've read very recently is by a guy called Oliver Berkman,
Mm.
and it's called Meditation for Mortals, I think. I think I've got that
Yes.
name right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like a 28-day meditations, but you know, very short. The idea is to read one each day, but just so powerful and good. Sort of, you know, you don't have to be brilliant at meditation to get something out of it. Is basically the take out of that book. Yeah. Provoking little thoughts. Yeah. And I read quite a few books on coaching as well, and and sort of there's one I'm reading at the moment called Change Stories, which is about sort of organisational change, because obviously that's something that I'm very interested in. So yeah, I'm a bit of I read a lot of business type books. Yeah. In fact, just because I'm going through with the dog and my best friend, I thought I just need some light relief. So I've just got a couple of trashy novels that I bought today in the supermarket. I thought I'd just ease up on the improvement for a bit and just give yourself a break, girl. But that's self-care too. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I don't read any self-improvement before bed. I read just fiction and, you know, just something.
Oh, another book I have to tell you about.
Yes.
It's called The Choice by Edith Eger.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, it is. I honestly think it's one of the best books I've ever read. It's so moving, it's so powerful. Age 16, she was sent to Auschwitz, and she was there she survived basically, and left with her sister. I won't give away all the rest of it, but she's now in the States. She's very old, but she is the most remarkable human being, just extraordinary. It's a really beautiful, empowering, harrowing at times, but really uplifting book. Really, really good.
All right, I wrote it down. It's going in.
You won't regret it. Nobody would regret reading that book. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, speaking of books, where can people find your book, Tabbin, to buy it? And where can they find you if they want to connect with you, learn more about your coaching, your speaking, and all the great things you're doing?
Okay, so the book is the easiest way to get it is on Amazon, because you can get it from the publisher and some other sort of online bookstores, but Amazon's unfortunately where most people get their books, so it's easy enough to do. And my business is called winetowatercoaching.com. But actually, if you Google Tabbin Almond, it tends to take you there because there aren't any other Tabbins, which is kind of quite fortunate.
Great.
And I coach one-on-one, and I also run a group coaching thing with another coach who I used to work with in advertising as well. So we've known each other a long, long time. And we run a program together called Unstuck. But all of that's on the website. So, yeah.
Wonderful. And are you on social media if people want to follow you?
Yeah, at Wine to Water Coaching. Yeah, so they can find everything there. And I'm on LinkedIn as Tabbin Catherine Almond, because when I was working in advertising, people knew me by Catherine, my official name. So I had to put both, which is a little bit complicated and confusing, but there we go.
Yeah. Okay, good to know. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on.
It's been brilliant.
Yeah, it's so cool to see all the work you've done and the work we've done in this space, and I just love seeing you flourish. So thank you.
Thank you. Likewise. And one day I'm going to come over and come to a game. That would be so cool.
I want you to get to Michigan, and we'll watch a hockey game together, and it'll be
so cool. All right. Thank you so much for having me on, Tony. It's been really fun to catch up.
My pleasure. If you all are looking to connect with me, I'm not hard to find. The hockey side of my life is at kwings.com, and then everything related to my coaching, TEDx, podcast, my conference, Empower Her.